right, chat. So I kind of touched on this a little bit in prior segments about, my thoughts on the outcome of the election. Obviously, as progressives, we were all rooting for Kamala and we were hoping Kamala would win. But there were some very glaring flaws in hindsight that Kamala made in her campaign that cost her the election. And I saw this tweet by Bernie Sanders that really seems to agree with my position on it. And I wanted to show you guys. But by the way, shout out to Bernie. We love us some Bernie for sure. Bernie is good people. I really wish the Dems gave him a shot back in 2016 because I would have voted for that guy 100%. I know right wingers that were like pro Bernie. So yeah, it's a shame that he didn't get a fair shake. But in any case, I want to show you this statement that Bernie put out, and it really does elaborate on my thoughts on what the Dems did wrong, which is they really dropped the ball on the working class. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's take a look at it. News, Sanders' statement on the results of the 2024 presidential election. This was put out on November 6, 2024. It says, today, Bernie Sanders today released the following statement in response to the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party, which has abandoned the working class people, would find that the working class has abandoned them. Yeah. If you don't do enough to appeal to the working class, they're not going to vote for you. I've talked about this quite a few times throughout the course of this stream as we've covered other segments throughout this stream. But the real issue here is that the average voter, the average everyday voter, they're not tunnel visioned on specific issues like we are. And that's not to say that those issues, women's rights, trans rights, the environment, any progressive cause that you can throw at the wall, it's not to say that those issues don't matter. They do. They absolutely do. But when you're trying to win elections, the most important thing to succeed in that win is appealing to the working class. And for, a party that says that they have the working class's mind, the Democratic Party, they didn't appeal to the working class enough. In fact, Trump was saying things that to the average normie sound great on paper, and they didn't even do enough to try and convince people why Trump's policies were bad. The whole tariffs thing, claiming that he's going to remove income tax. These are bad things. And they didn't even try to counter his positions by explaining to people why they're bad and why they won't benefit them the way that he claims they will. But that's really the issue here. First, it was the white working class, and now it's Latino and black workers as well. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. Today, while the very rich are doing phenomenally well, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and we have more income and wealth inequality than ever before. Let me explain something to you. I'm someone that, when I was in school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do in a career. I knew I wanted to work in IT. So I worked very hard to, take all the classes I needed to get the right credits and get the right work experience. I did a lot of internships doing tech work while I was in high school. I went to like a technical school to get the certifications I needed to get into IT work. And I worked very hard to get into IT work, and I succeeded. For those of you guys who don't know, this YouTube thing, as much as it's nice to make a little extra money on the side doing this, this isn't my day job. I don't make nearly enough to make it my day job either. My day job is I work as a tech guy, right? I have a pretty good career and a pretty good paying career. But as a lot of you guys know, who've been longtime supporters of mine, I have a wife who, has a disability, muscular dystrophy, and there's unique challenges that come with that. And there's unique costs and stuff like that that come with being in a relationship where you have to care for somebody like that. So even someone like me who has a good paying career, because of these unique challenges, even I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I have a career that pays very well, and even I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Now, not everybody has the unique circumstances I do, and not everybody has as good of a paying career as I do, right? So just imagine if someone like me in my position is living paycheck to paycheck. Imagine how the average American is doing. It's a really rough time. The cost of living is insane. But this is true. This is something that the average American is struggling with every single day. Unbelievably, real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the average American worker are actually lower now than they were 50 years ago. Today, despite an explosion in technology and worker productivity, many young people will have a worse standard of living than their parents. And this is true. I know so many people in my generation or lower that they kind of look at their lives and are just like, by now, like my parents, they owned a home, they had started a family, they had a nice little nest egg saved up, and they look at all the things that their family was able to achieve when they were growing up, and they kind of like get really down on themselves because they haven't been able to achieve the same things. And for a lot of people, it's not even their fault. It's just the current state of the cost of living and everything. It makes it extremely difficult to be able to achieve a lot of the things that our parents did before us. And many of them worry that artificial intelligence and robotics will make a bad situation even worse. Today, despite spending far more per capita than other countries, we remain the only wealthy nation not to guarantee healthcare to all as a human right, and we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. That is ridiculous. It's 2024, and that should not still be an issue in this country. We alone, among other major countries, cannot even guarantee paid family and medical leave. Today, despite strong opposition from a majority of Americans, we continue to spend billions funding the extremist Netanyahu government's all-out war against the Palestinian people, which has led to the horrific humanitarian disaster of mass malnutrition and the starvation of thousands of children. I did see some people talking about this and saying that like this was a big contributor to Kamala Harris losing. And like, here's the thing. You guys all know my position on the Israel-Palestine conflict. I want to see the freedom of the Palestinian people. That's what I want. And I don't think we should stand by idly while innocent people are being slaughtered in mass. Okay? That's my position on that. But I got to be honest with you. To the people that are saying that this was a big contributor to the loss, I really don't think so. You have to understand that, like, while this is an issue that a lot of people can agree that it's really sad what's happening in Gaza, this is not a big issue for the average American voter. It's one of those things that, as I mentioned before in one of the previous segments, if you brought it to someone's attention, if you walked up to the average normie and pointed out, hey, this is what's happening in Gaza, they would say, yeah, that's really sad. And it's really unfortunate that that's happening. And I hope that changes over time. I'm confident in saying that most people, that would probably be their position on it if you explained it to them. But when it comes to them voting for who they want to be president, this is not a main issue that's on their mind when they're in the ballot box. We get in these leftist spaces online, in these progressive spaces, we get very tunnel visioned on this idea of this being a very important issue. And it is. But we have to understand that not everybody thinks the way we do in these spaces. For the average person, voting for someone that they hope could help them keep a roof over their families' heads and food on their tables, this is not a big issue for them when they're voting. Will the big money interests and well-paid consultants who control the Democratic Party learn any real lessons from this disastrous campaign? Will they understand the pain and political alienation that tens of millions of Americans are experiencing? Do they have any ideas as to how we can take on the increasingly powerful oligarchy, which has so much economic and political power? Probably not. They have 4 years to learn from the mistakes of this year's election. All we can do is hope that they learn. I don't know if they will, but all we can do is hope they do. In the coming weeks and months, those of us concerned about grassroots democracy and economic justice need to have some serious political discussions. Stay tuned. So, I think that this was a big factor in terms of why we lost this collection. Leaving the working class behind was a big mistake on the part of the Dems, and it lost us the election. So hopefully over the course of the next 4 years, they can learn from that mistake and they can do better next time around. Otherwise, we might be sitting in the exact same position 4 years from now. So we'll have to see how that goes. But until then, it's going to be a very interesting 4 years, to say the least.